Book 3 of Troilus and Criseyde by Geoffrey Chaucer. Recording by Kevin Johnson. Book 3 Incipit Prohemium Turciae Libri. O blissful licht, of which the beamus clare adorneth all the threede heavene faire. O sonne's leaf, O love's doctor dere, plaisance of love, O goodly debonair, in gentil heartes I ready to repair. O very cause of hele and of gladnesse, ye heried be the meek and the godnesse. In heaven and hell, in earth and salte sea, is felt the meekt, if that he will discerne, as man, bread, best, fish, herb and green tree, they feel intimes with viper eterne. God loveth, and to love will not werne, and in this world no lives creature, withouten love, is worth, or may endure. Ye loves first to thilk effect is glada, thurug which that thinges leven alle and bay, komme vaden, and amorous and madda, on mortal thinge, and as jou list a ye, jeve him in love ease or adversity, and in 1,000 formes down him sente, for love in earth, and whom jou list he hente. Ye faire smars a paysen of his ire, and as jou list ye maken heartes digne, algetes hem that ye will set a fire, they dreden shama, and vises they resigna. Ye do hem curtes bay, fresh and benigne, and he your low after a week intendeth. The joys that he hath, your meekt him sendeth. Ye holden regne and house in unity, ye soothfast cause of friendship been also. Ye know all thilke covered quality of things which that folk on wonderen so, when they cannot construe how it may joy. She loveth him, or we, he loveth her. As we this fish, and not that, cometh to were. Ye folk law han set in universe, and this know ye by him that lovers be, that whoso striveth with jou hath the worse. Now, laddie breekt, for thy benignity, at reverence of him that serven thee, whose clerk I am, so teacheth me devise, some joy of that is felt in thee service. Yea, in me naked heart sentiment, in helde, and do me show of thee sweetnesse. Calliope, thy voice be now present, for now is nede, say'st thou not my distresse? How we mote tell anon reeked the gladnesse of Troilus to Venus harrying, to which gladnesse, who neede hath, God him bring. Explicit Prohemium Turciae Libri. Incipit Liber Turcius. Le all this main a wheel Troilus, recording his leçon in this manner. Ma fay, thought he, thus will he say and thus will he plain unto my lady dare, that word is good, and this shall be my chera. This nearly not forgeten in no wise, God leave him worken as he can devise. On Lord, so that his heart gan to quapa, herring her come and shorte for to seeke, and Pandorus, that led her by the lapa, come near, and gan in at the curtain peeke, and saide, God do bote on alla seeke. See, who is here jou comen to visit? Lo, here is she that is your death to wete. Therewith it seemed as he wept almost, Aha, quod Troilus so ruefully, where may be woe, O mighty God thou wost, who is all there, ye see not truly. Sirrah, quod Criseyde, it is Pandara and I, yea, sweete harte, alas, I may not rise, to knele, and do you honour in some wise. Undressed him upward, and she reeked though, gan both her handes soft upon him lay. O, for the love of God, do ye not so to me, quod she? What is this to say? Sirrah, come am I to jou for causes tway, first a jou to thanke, and of your lordship, eke continuance I will jou beseeke. These Troilus that heard his lady pray of lordship him, wex neither quick ne deed, ne meeked a word for sham to it say. Although men shoulde smeten of his heed, but Lord, so he wax so dane leech read, and sirrah his leçon, that he wend a con, to pray and hear is thurk his witty ron. Criseyde all this espied well enoch, for she was wise, and loved him never the lassa, all ne'er he mellapert or made it talk, or was too bold to sing a fool a massa. But when his charm gone somewhat to passa, his raisons as he may me rimes holda, I jau will tella, as tachen book is olda. In changed voice, reeked for his very dreda, which voice I cook, and thereto his manera goodly abased, and now his shoe is reda, now pala, unto Criseyde his lady dera, with look downcast and humble yolden chera, lo, the alder firste word that him esterte was tweeze, mercy, mercy, sweete harte. And stint a wheel, and one he maked out bringa, the next word was, God wot, for he have as faithfully as he have had koninga, been yours, also God so my soul was sava, and shall till that he, woeful weak begrava, and though he dar ni can unto jou plain, ye wis I suffre not the lassa pain. Thus much as now, O woman leech a weave, I may outbringa, and if this jou displays, that shall ye reke upon mine own leave, richt sona, I trow, and doen your heart and ease, if with me deeth your heart ye me appease. But sin that ye han heard me somewhat say, now reche I never how sona that I day. Therewith is manly sorrow to beholda, it make to han mad and heart of stone to rowa, and pandora weep as he to watra holda, and poked ever his nase newer and newer, and saida, Woe begone ben heart is throwa, for love of God make of this thing an enda, or slee us both at once, ere that ye wenda. What, quod she, by God and by my troth, I knewt not what ye willna that I saye. What, quod he, that ye han on him routha, for God is love, and doth him knock today. Now then a thus, quod she, I wolde him pray to tell me the fin of his entanta, yet wist I never well what that he meanta. What that I meana, O sweete harte dear, quod Troilus, O goodly fresh affray, that with the streamers of your ain clara ye wold some team friendly on me say, and then a green that I may been hay, without a branch of vies on any wiesa, in troth alway to doen jou my servisa. As to my laddie reeked and chief resort, with all me wit and all me diligence, and I to han reeked as your least comfort, undur your yarda, ego to mean offence, as deeth if that ye break your defence, and that ye degna may so much honour may to commanden oct in any hour. And I to ben your very humble thrower, secret, and in my pine as patient, and evermore desire freshly newer, to serven and be lika, aye diligent, and with good hearta all holy your talent receiven well, how sorrow that me smarta, lo, this mene I, min own sweete hearta. Quod Pandarus, lo, hear an hard request, and reasonable, a lade for to warna. Now, nesa mean, by natal loves fest, were ye a god, ye should starve as yerna, that here and well this man will nothing yerna but your honour, and seen him almost starve, and been so loath to suffren him jou serve. With that she gone her eyen on him casta, full easily and full debonairly, avising her, and heed not too fasta, with never a word, but said him softly, Min honour salve, I will well browly, and in switch form as he can now devisa, receiving him fully to my service. Beseeching him for God is love, that he wolde, in honour of troth and gentilesse, as he well mene, eke mene well to me, and min honour, with wit and busyness I keep, and if he may don him gladness, from henceforth I wis I know not fain, now beeth all whole, no longer ye ne plain. But natheless this warne I jou, quod she, a king's son although ye be I wis, ye shall no more have sovereignty of me and love, than reeked in that case is, ne I nil forbear, if that ye doen amiss, to wrath and jou, and will that ye may serve, cherisen jou reeked after ye deserve. And shortly dere heart and all me kneekte, beth glad and draweth jou to lustiness, and ye shall truly, with all me meekte, your bittere tornen all in to sweetness, if ye be shay that may yow do gladnessa, for every woe ye shall recover blissa, and him in armes took, and gan him kissa. Viel Pandarus on knees, and up his eyen to heaven threw, and held his hand as he, Immortal God, quod he, that mayst knock Dian, Cupid Imena, of this mayst glorify, on Venus thou mayst maken melody, without an hand, me seemeth that in the towne, for this marvel, ye heere each belle sound. But ho, no more as now of this matter, for we this folk will komen up anon, that han the letter read, lo, I am here, but I conjure thee, Criseyde, and un and two, thou Troilus, when thou mayst goon, that at mine house ye been at my warning, for ye for well shall shape your coming, and eiseth there your heart is reeked enoch, and lat see which of yow shall bear the bell, to speak of love reeked, therewith he loch, for there have ye a laser for to tell. Quod Troilus, how longe shall ye dwell ere this be done? Quod he, when thou mayst rease, this thing shall be reeked as I yow devise. With that Elaine and also Deiphobus, though comen upward, reeked at the stairs ende, and Lord, so dan gan groane Troilus, his brother and his suster for to blende. Quod Pandarus, it time is that we wend attack, Nesamin, your lave at alla three, and let him spake, and cometh forth with me. She took her leave at him full thriftily, as she well could, and they hear reverence unto the full deeden heartily, and spake in wonder well in her absence, of her in praising of her excellence, her governance, her wit, and her manner commended den, it joya was to her. Now let her wende unto her own place, and turn away to Troilus again, that gan for leekly of the letter passe, that Deiphobus hadde in the garden seen, and of Elaine and him he wolde fain delivered bane, and said that him laced to sleep, and after Talus have a rest. Elaine him kissed, and took her leave bleve, Deiphobus eke, and home went every week, and Pandarus as fast as he may drive, to Troilus though come as lean reeked, and on a pelate, all that glad neeked, by Troilus he lay, with merry cheer, to tell, and well was him they very fair. When every week was voided but they two, and all the doors were fasty shette, to tell in short, without a word as mo, as Pandarus withouten any lette, uprose and on his bed as seat him sate, and gan to spaken in a sober wise to Troilus, as he shall yow devise. Min alder lavest lord and brother dear, God woot and thou that it sat me so sore, when ye thee saw so languishing to yere, for love, of which thee woe wax alway more, that ye with all me meeked and all me dore, have ever seethen done me busyness, to bringe thee to joy out of distress. And have it brought to switch pleat as thou wost, so that, through me, thou standest now in way to farewell. Ye say it for no boast, and wost thou which, for shame it is to say, for thee have ye begun a gammon play, which that he never done shall eft for other, although he were 1,000-fold me brother. That is to say, for thee and me be common, betwixt and gam and earnest, switch and mena as maken woman unto man to common. All say he knocked, thou wost well what he mena, for thee have I me nesa, of vices kleine, so fully mad the gentilesse triste, that all shall be reeked as thee selve least. But God, that all what, take I to witness, that never I this for covetous wrought, but only for to abrege that distress, for which well neek thou didst, as me thought. But, gode brother, do now as thee ought, for God is love, and keep her out of blame, sin thou art wise, and salve alway her name. For well thou wost the name as yet of her among the people, as who saith, hallowed is, for that man is unbore, I dare well swear, that ever wist that she did amiss. But woe is me that I, that cause all this, may thinken that she is my niece Adera, and her eam, and tratter eke vera. And were it wist that through mine engine, had in my niece ye put this fantasy, to do thy lust, and wholly to be thine, we, all the world upon it will decree, and say, that the worst treachery did in this cause, that ever was begone, and she for lost, and thou reek not ye wanna. Wherefore, ere ye will further go on a pass, yet if thee beseech and fully say, that private go with us in this cause, that is to say, that thou us never ray, and be not wroth, though give thee oft a pray to hold in secret, which an haig matera, for skilful is, thou wost well my prayer. On thank what woe there hath betidder this, for mocking of avantes, as men reade, and what mischance in this world yet there is, fro die to die, reeked for that wicked data, for which these wiese clerkes that been data, and ever yet proverbed to us younger, that first virtue is to keep a tongue. And nere it that wilna as now to brega, diffusion of specha, could almost 1,000 old stories thee allege of women lost, through false and folly's boast. Proverbs canst thee self ye now and woast, against that visa, for to be a laba, all said men sooth as often as they gaba. O tongue, alas, so often here beforn, hast thou mara many a laddie breeked of hue saida, wail away that day that he was born. And many a maid sore was for to know, and, for the more part, all is untrue that men of yelpa, and it were brought to preva, of kind non aventur is to leva. Aventur and a liar, all is un, as thus, posa, a woman grant me her lova, and saith that other will she known, and am sworn to hold in it secret, and after go tell it 2 or 3, wis am aventur at the leista, and lair for break my behesta. Now look thana, if they be not to blama, switch manner folk, what shall ye clape him, what that him avant of woman, and by nama, that never yet be heek to him, this ne that, ne knew him more than mean all the heart. No wonder is, so God may send a hela, though woman dreade with us men to dela. Ye say not this for no mistrust of yow, ne for no wise man, but for fola's nisa, and for the harm that in the world is now, as well for folly oft as for malice. For well wot ye in wise folk, that visa no woman drat, if she be well avised, for wise being by follies harm chastised. But now to purpose, lave brother Dara, have all this thing that ye have said in Minda, and keep thee close, and be now of good cheer, for at the day thou shalt me throw a fienda, ye shall the process set in switch a kinda, and go to fawn that it shall thee suffice, for it shall be wreaked as thou wilt thee visa. For well ye would thou mayest well par day, therefore dar this fully undertaka, thou wost eke what the lady granted thee, on day is set, the charters up to maka, have now good neeked, ye may no longer waka, and bid for me, since thou art now in blissa, that God me send a death, or son Elisa. Who make to tell a half the joy or festa, which that the soul of Troilus thou felt, herring the effect of Pandarus' behesta, his old woe that mad his heart swelta, gan though for joy wasten and to malta, and all the richessa of his seekers sora at one is fleda, he felt of him no more. But reeked so as these hortas and these hayes, that han in winter data been and drea, revesten him in grena, when that may is, when every lusty leaketh best to playa, reeked in that selve wisa, sooth to say, wax sodin leech his heart full of joy, that gladder was there never man in Troy. And gan his look on Pandarus upcasta, full soberly, and friendly for to see, and saida, friend in April the lasta, as well thou wost, if it remember thee, how nech the death for woe thou found of me, and how thou didst all thy business to know of me thy cause of my distress. Thou wast, how long ye it forbar to say to thee, that art the man that ye best triste, and peril was it noon to thee be ray, that wiste ye well, but tell me, if they least, sith ye so loth was that thee self it wiste, how durst ye mo tellen of this matter, that quacke now, and no wicht may us heare. But natheless, by that God ye they sweare, that as him list may all this world govern, and if he lee, Achilles with his spear mine hearte clave, all were me lief eterne, as ye immortal, if he late or yorne, wolde it be ray, or durste, or shoulde kone, for all the good that God made under sonne, that rather day ye wolde, and determine, as thinketh me, now stooked in prison, in wretchedness, in filth, and in vermine, caitiff to cruel King Agamemnon, and this in all the temples of this town, upon the goddess alla, I will thee swear, to-morrow die, if that thee leaketh here. And that thou hast so much ye done for me, that ye may it never more deserve, this know ye well, I'll make thee now for thee 1,000 times on a morwen starve. Ye can no more, but that I will thee serve, reeked as thy sclave, whither so thou wende, for evermore, unto my lieves ende. But here, with all mine heart, ye thee beseech, that never in me thou dame switch folly, as ye shall sayne me thought, by thy speech, that this, which thou madest for company, ye should when it were a bawdery. Ye am not wode, a lief ye would be, it is not so, that woot ye well, pardie. But he that goth, for gold or for riches, on switch message, call him what thee least, and this that thou doest, call it gentilesse, compassion, and fellowship, and tryst. Depart it so, for weeder where is wist, how that there is diversity required betwixt things like, as ye have learned. And that thou know ye think not ne when, that this service shama be or yepa, ye have my fair suster Polyxene, Cassandra, Elaine, or any of the frappa, be she never so fair or well y shapa. Tell me, which thou wilt of everych one, to han for theen, and let me then alone. But sith that thou hast done me this service, me lief to save, and for none hope of made, so for the love of God, this great emprise, perform it out, for now is most in need, for he can lo, without any dread, he will all within hest his all a cape, have now good necht, and let us both asleep. Thus held him each of other well apaid, that all the world may meet it bait amend. And on the morrow, when they were arrayed, each to his own nades gan intenda, but Troilus, log as the fear he brende, for sharp desire of hope and of pleasance, he not forgot his good governance. But in himself with manhood gan restrain, each rackle data and each unbridled chera, that all although that leven sooth to sayn, ne shoulde han wist, be word or be manner, what that he meant as touching this matter. From every week as fair as is the cloude he was, so well dissimulen he coulde. And all the wheel which that I yow devise, this was his lief, with all his fulle meekte. But I he was in mart as he service, this is to sayn, in armes as a knecht. And for the more part, the longer neekte he lay, and thought how that he meekte serve his laddie best, her thank for to deserve. Nilly not sweare, although he lay softe, that in his thought he na somewhat diseased, nay that he turned on his pillow softe, and wolde of that him maced, han been seized, but in which case main is not all we pleased, for ocht he wot, no more than was he, that canny dame of possibility. But certain is to purpose for to go, that in this wheela, as written is in Gesta, he say his laddie some time, and also she with him spak, when that she durst or laced, and be her both of these, as was the beste, appointed then for warly in this nade, so as they durst, how they would proceed. But it was spoken in so short a wheeze, in switch await alway, and in switch fera, lest any week de veinen or de vesa, world of him twoe, or to it lay an era, that all this world so lief to him ne wera, as that Cupido wolde him grassa sanda, to maken of her speech a riechtenenda. But thilke little that they spak or rookte, his wheeze goose took eye of all switch heda, it samet her, he wiste what she thochte withouten werde, so that it was no nede to bide him aught to dona, or aught forbede, for which she thought that love, all comet lata, of all a joy hara opened her the yata. On shortly of this process for to passa, so well his work and wordes he besette, that he so full stood in his ladi grassa, that 20,000 teames or she late, she thanked God she ever with him mate, so could he him govern in switch service, that all the world ne meeked it bet divise. For she found him so discreet in all, so secret and of switch obeisance, that well she felt he was to hear a wall of stale, and shield from every displaisance, that, to being in his good governance, so wise he was, she was no more afeared, Emina as fair as aught been required. And Pandarus to queek alway the feara, was every leak oppressed and diligent, to aise his friend was set all his desire. He shof on, he to and fro was sent, he latras bar when Troilus was absent, that never man, as in his friend is nede, ne bar him bet than hay, withouten drede. But now parantur some man waiten wolde, that every worde, or sonde, or look, or chera of Troilus, that he rehearsen shoulder, in all this wheel unto his laddie dere, he trow it were a long thing for to hear, or of what week that stand in switch disjointe, his word is alla, or every look to pointe. For sotha he have not heard it done ere this, in story noon, ne no man hear he wena, and though he wold he could not he wis, for there was some epistle him betweene, that wold, as saith mine actor, well contain, neg half this book, of which him least not rita, how should he then a lean of it indita. But to the great effect then say he thus, that standing in concord and in quiet, these ilke twoe, Criseyde and Troilus, as he have told, and in this team a suite, sev only often meekte they not mate, ne laser have her speeches to fulfill, that it befell reeked as he shall jou telle. But Pandarus that ever did his meekte reeked for the fin that he shall speak of here, as for to bring to his house some neekte his fara Nisa and Troilus y fera, whereas at laser at this haik manner, touching her love, were at that full of bonde, had out of doubt a tema to it found. For he with great deliberation had everything that hereto meekte vela fon cast, and put in execution, and neither laughed, for cost ne for travail, come if him least, him should no thing faila, and for to be in aught dispeed there, that wist he well, and impossible were. Dreadelies it clear was in the wind of every pea, and every letta gamma. Now all is well, for all the world is blind in this matter, both framed and tama. This timber is already up to frama, whose lacketh naught, but that we weten wolde a certain hour, in which she come and shoulder. And Troilus that all his purveyance canoe at the fulla, and waited on it aye, had a hereupon eke made a great ordonnance, and found his cause, and thereto his array. If that he were missed, neeked or die, there will he was about his service, that he was going to doon his sacrifice. And most at switch a temple alon waka, answered of Apollo for to bay, and first to seen the holy laurer quaka, ere that Apollo spak out of the tray, to tellen him next when Grekes shoulden flay, and for thee let to him no man, God forbade, would pray Apollo helpen in this neda. Now is there little more for to doon, but pandare up, and shortly for to sayn, reeked soon upon the changing of the mona, when leakless is the world and neeked or twain, and that the welkin shoop him for to reign. he streicht a morwa unto his niece went, ye han well heard the fin of his intent. When he was come, he gan anon to play, as he was wont, and of himself to yape, and finally he swore and gan her say, by this and that, she should him not escape, ne langer doen him after her to gape, but certainly she moste, by her leve, come supen in his house with him at eve. At which she loch and gan her fast excuse, and saide, it raineth low, how should he goon? Let be, quod he, ne ston not thus to muse, this moot be done, ye shall be there anon. So at the last hereof they fell at noon, or else, soft he swore her in her ear, he nolde never come there she were. Soon after this to him she gan to roune, and asked him if Troilus were there. He swore her, nay, for he was out of town, and saide, Nese, ye pose that he were, yow thurfte never have the more affair, for rather than men meek to him there spee, may were liver 1,000-fold to die. Not list mine actor fully to declare what that she thoughte when he saide so, that Troilus was out of town ye fare, as if he said there of sooth or now, but that withouten a wait with him to go, she granted him, sith he her that besought, and, as his niece, obeyed as her ought. But natheless, yet gan she him beseech, although with him to goon it was no fairer, for to beware of goosish peplas speech, that dreamen things which that never were, and well avise him whom he brochte there, and say to him, Eam, sin ye mot on your triste, look all be well, and do now as your leaste. He swore here, yes, by stokes and by stones, and by the goddess that in heaven dwelle, or elles were him levere, soul and bones, with Pluto king as deep been in helle as Tantalus, what should he more telle, when all was well, he rose and took his leave, and she to supper come when it was eve. With a certain of her own men, and with her fair niece Antigone, and other of her woman 9 or 10, but woe was glad now, woe as Troye, but Troilus, that stood and meek did say, thurgout a little window in a stew, there he be shat, sin midnight was in mew. Unwist of every week but of Pandera, but to the point, now one that she was come with all a joy, and all a friend as fara, here anon in armes hath her noma, and after to the supper, all and soma, when Tima was, full softe they him sette, God wot, there was no dainty for to fette. And after supper gonen, they Teresa, at Aza well, with heart as fresh and glad, and well was him that could best devise to leaken hair, or that her loch and mara. He song, she played, he told tala of wada, but at the last, as everything hath enda, she took her leave, and made his world a wenda. But O fortune, executrice of our days, O influences of these heavens hey, soth is that under God ye been our hirdes, doch to us best as been the causes ree, this mainly now, for she gan homeward he, but execute was all beside her leva, at the goddess a will, for which she most believe. The bente moon with her hornes pala, Saturn, and Jove, and Cancro joined were, that switch a rain from heaven gan availa, that every man or woman that was there, had of that smoky rain a very fair, at which Pandera, though lauch, and saide then, now were it Tima a lady to go henna. But good anace, if he meeked ever plaise a yow anything, then pray I yow, quod he, to doen mine heart is now so great an aise, as for to dwell here all this neekt with me, for we this is your own house, pardie. For, by my troth, ye say it nocht a gamma, to wend as now, it were to me a shama. Criseyde, which that could as much a good as half a world, took heed of his prayer, and sin it ran, and all was on a flood, she thoughte, as good chep me ye dwell in here, and granted gladly with a friend his chere, and have a thank, as Gruche and Dana abida, for whom to goen it may not well betide. I will, quod she, min unkla lief and dera, send that jou least, it skille is to be so. I am right glad with jou to dwell in Hera. I said about a gamma, I will to go. I wis grant mercy, Nesa, quod he though. Were it a gamma no, sought for to tella. Now am I glad, send that jou least to dwella. Thus all is well, but though began a reeked the newe joy, and all the fest again. But Pandarus, if godly had he meekte, he wold han heed here to bede fain, and saide, Lord, this is an huge rain. This were a weather for to sleepen in, and that he rade us, sona to begin. On Nesa would ye weary wool jou lay, for that we shall not lingen for asunder, and for ye neither shullen dare ye say, hear a noise of raines nor of thunder. Be God, reeked in my leete closet yonder, and ye will in that outer house alone be wardane of your woman every chon. And in this middle chambre that ye say, shall your woman sleepen well and softe, and there ye saide shall yourselve be, and if ye legen well to neekt come ofte, and careth not what weather is on lofte, the wind anon, and one so that your leaste, so go we sleepe, I trow it be the beste. Then is no more, but hereafter sona, the voide drunk, and traversed brow anon, gone every week, that had a knock to dona more in the place, out of the chambre gone, and ever mo so strennily it ron, and blew therewith so wonderlich louda, that well neck no man hear an other code. Though Pandarus her eam reeked as him aukta, with woman sweet as were her most abouta, for glad unto her beddes seed her braukta, and took his leva, and gan for low louta, and saide, Here at this closet door withouta, reeked over thwart your woman liegen aula, that, whom your list of him ye may hear a calla. So when that she was in the closet laid, and all her woman forth by ordinance a bede weren, that as ye have said, there was no more to skipen nor to trounce, but boden go to bede with mischance, if any weekt was stirring anywhere, and la to him sleep that a bede were. But Pandarus that well could each a dale the olde dance, and every point therein, when that he say that all the thing was well, he thought he would upon his work begin, and gan the stewardor all soft on pina, and still as stone, without no longer letta, by Troilus adown reeked he him setta. And shortly to the point reeked for to gone, of all this work he told him word and enda, and saide, Make thee ready reeked anon, for thou shalt into heaven bliss wenda. Now blissful Venus, thou my grace senda, quod Troilus, for never yet no neda had I ere now, ne helvendel the drede. Quod Pandarus, ne drede thee never a del, for it shall be reeked as thou wilt desire. So thrive I, this neekt shall I make it well, or casten all the gruel in the fire. Yet blissful Venus, this neekt thou may inspire, quod Troilus, as wise as I thee serve, and ever bet and bet shall, till he sterve. And if he hadde, O Venus full of mirth, aspectus bada of Mars or of Saturn, for thou combust, or that were in my birth, thy father pray all thilke harm disturn of grace, and that I glada yen may turn, for love of him thou lovedest in the shower, I main adone, that with the boor was slawe. O love eke, for the love of fair Europa, the which in form of bowl away thou fette, now help, O Mars, thou with thy bloody cope, for love of Cypris, thou me nocht ne lette. O Phoebus, thank when Danae herselven shete under the bark, and Lauror wex for drede, yet for her love, O help now at this nede. Mercury, for the love of Hera say eke, for which Pallas was with Aglarus wroth, now help, and eke Diane, I thee be sake, that this viage be not to thee loath. O fatal Sustren, which, ere any cloth may shoppen was, may destiny may spona, so helpeth to this work that is begone. Quod Pandarus, thou wretched mouse's hearte, art thou aghast so that she will thee beate? We don this furred cloak upon thee sherte, and follow me, for I will have thee weeta. But bide, and let me go before a lita. And with that word he gan and do a trappa, and Troilus he brocht in by the lappa. The sterny wind so loud gan to routa, that no weekt other noise make to heara. And they that layen at the door withouta, full secretly they sleepten all the fera. And Pandarus with a full sober chera goeth to the door anon withouten lata, thereas they lay, and softly it shata. And as he come a yanward privily, his niece awoke and asked, Who goth there? Me dere niece, quod he, it am I, ne wondereth not, ne have of it no fera. And there he come, and said her in her era, No word for love of God ye be sacha, that no week to rees and heron of our specha. What? Which way be ye common, benedicite, quod she, and how thus unwist of him aula? Here at this sacred trappador, quod he, quod Criseyde, let me some week to call, God forbade that it should falla, quod Pandarus, that ye which folly rockta, they make to dame a thing they never thoughta. It is not good a sleeping hound to waka, ne ye've a week to cause to divine. Your woman sleeping alla ye undertaka, so that for him the houseman make to meena, and sleeping woolen till the sun asheena, and when me tal al brocht is to an enda, on wist, right as he calm, so will he wenda. Now, niece mean, ye shall well understanda, quod he, so as ye woman damen alla, that for to hold in love a man in honda, and him her leave, and dare a heart to calla, and making him an hauva above a calla, meena as love and other in this wheela, she doth herself a sham and him a gila. Now whereby that he tella yow all this, ye wot yourself as well as any weekt, how that your love all fully granted is to Troilus, the worthiest kneekt, one of this world, and thereto troth pleeked, that but it were on him along, ye nolde him never falsen, wille ye liven should. Now stant it thus, that sith I frau jou wenta, this Troilus richt platly for to sayn, is thurg agoter, by a prive wenta, into my chambra come in all this rain, on wist of every manner week certain, salve of myself, as weasely have I joy, and by that faith he shall pream of Troy. And he is come in switch pain and distress, that, but he be all fully wooed by this, he certainly mote fall into woodnessa, but if God helpa, and cause why this is, he saith him told is, of a friend of his, how that ye should love one that hath a horasta, for sorrow of which this night shall be his lasta. Criseyde, which that all this wonder hearda, gan suddenly about her heart colda, and with a seek she sorrowfully answerda, Alas, I wenda, whoso talas tolda, me dara hearta wold me not holda so weakly false, alas, conceit is wronga, what harm they doen, for now live I too longa. Horaste, alas, and false in Troilus, I know him not, God help me so, quod she. Alas, what wicked spirit told him thus? Now certes, to morwa, and I him see, ye shall thereof as full excusen me as ever did a woman, if him leaka. And with that word she gan full sora seeka. O God, quod she, so worldly sillinessa, which clerkes callen false felicity, ye meddled is with many a bitternessa, full anguish aus, and is, God wot, quod she, condition of vain prosperity, for either joy is common nocht ye fera, or elles no weekt hath him alwi hera. O brutal wella of manna's joy unstabla, with what weekt so thou be, or how thou play, either he wot that thou, joy, art mewable, or wot it not, it moot been one of tway. Now if he wot it not, how may he say that he hath very joy and sillinessa, that is of ignorance, in darknessa? Now if he wot that joy is transitory, as every joy of worldly thing mote flee, then every time he that hath in memory, the dread of lacing maketh him that he may in no perfect silliness obey, and if to lays his joy he set a meter, then seemeth it that joy is worth for lita. Wherefore I will define in this matter that truly, for aught I can espy, there is no very wella in this world a hera, but oh, thou wicked serpent jealousy, thou misbelieved and envious folly, why hast thou Troilus me mad untrista, that never yet a guilt him that he wista? Quod Pandarus, thus fallen is this cause. We uncle mean, quod she, who told him thus? Why doth my dear heart thus, alas? Yea, wot you, Nasa mean, quod he, what is, I hope all shall be well that is amiss, for ye may quench all this, if that you lest, and doth reek so, for I hold it the best. So shall I do tomorrow, I wis, quod she, and God to forn, so that it shall suffice. Tomorrow, alas, that were a fair, quod he. Nay, nay, it may not standen in this wiesa, for Nasa mean the sweeten clerk's wiesa, that parle is with dretching in ye drawa, nay, switch abode is bane knocked worth and hawa. Nasa all thing hath tema, idara vow, for one a chambra a fear is, or an hola, while more a nada is, it certainly rescawa than to disputa, and ax among us alla, how is this candela in the straw ye falla? Ah, benedicte, for all among that fara the harm is done, and farewell fell the fara. And, Nasa mean, ne take it not a grief, if that you suffre him all neeked in this woe. God help me so, ye had him never leave, that dare saying, now there is but we two, but well I woot, that ye will not do so, ye been too wise to do so great folly, to put his leaf all neeked in Jupiterty. Hadda ye him never leaf, by God, he winna ye hadda never thing so leaf, quod she. Now by my thrift, quod he, that shall be saina, for, sin ye make this ensample of me, if ye all neeked wolde him in sorrow see, for all the treasure in the town of Troy, ye bid a God, ye never mote have joy. Now looketh on, if ye, that been his love, shall put all neeked his leaf in Jupiterty, for thing of knocked, now, by that God above, knocked only this delay cometh of folly, but of malice, if that he shall knock lee. What? Plotly? And ye suffer him in distressa? Ye neither bounty done, ne gentilessa. Quanto Criseyde, will ye do no thing, and ye therewith shall stinte all his disease? Have a here, and beareth him this blue ringa, for there is no thing meek to him better please, save ye myself, ne more his heart appease, and say my dear heart, that his sorrow is causeless, that shall be seen tomorrow. A ring, quod he, yea, Hazelwood is shaken, ye Nasa mean, that ring most a hanna stone, that make the deed a men a leave a maken, and switch a ring trow ye that ye have known. Discretion out of your heed is gone, that fail now, quod he, and that is routh. O team ye lost, while mayst thou curse in slouth. Would ye not well that nobla and haik courage? Ne sorweth not, ne stinteth eke for lita, but if a fool were in a jealous raja, he nolda Satan at his sorrow amita, but feifa him with a few words as wita another day, when that he meeked him fienda, for this thing stand all in another kinda. This is so gentle and so tendre of hearta, that with his teeth he will his sorrows reka, for trusteth well how sore that him smerta, he will to jou no jealousy word spaka, and for thy, Nasa, ere that his hearta braka, so spak yourself to him of this matter, for with a word ye may his hearta stirra. Now have ye told what peril he is in, and his coming unwist is to every week, nay, pardie, harm may there be none, nay sinna. Ye will myself be with jou all this neekte, ye know eke how it is your own kneeked, and that by reeked ye most upon him trista, and ye all pressed to fetch him one jou lista. This accident so pithouse was to Hera, and eke so like a sooth, at prima facie, and Troilus her kneeked to her so dera, his prive coming, and the seeker plaza, that, though that she did him as thana agrasa, considered all things as they stode, no wonder is, since she did it all for good. Criseyde answered, as wisely God at rest my soul will bring, as me is for him woe, and e'en wis, fain wold he don the best, if that he had a grace to do so. But whether that ye dwella or for him go, em till God me better mean descend, at Dul Carnan, reeked at me with his end. Quod Pandarus, ye nesa well ye hera, Dul Carnan called is flaming of wretches. It seemeth hard, for wretches will not lera, for very slouth, or other wilful taches. This said by him that be not worth 12 fetches. But ye been wise, and that we han on honda, needs neither hard, ne skilful to withstanda. Then e'en, quod she, doth hear of ours our least, but ere he come, he will at first arise, and, for the love of God, sin all my trist is on your twoe, and ye been both a wise, so virtueth now, and so discreet a wise, that ye honour me have, and hae plaisance, for I am here all in your governance. That is well said, quod he, Menesidera, their good thrift on that wise gentle hearte, but liggeth stille, and taketh him richt here, it needeth not no further for him sterte, and each of you is a other service smarte, for love of God, and Venus, ye the Harry, for sona hope ye way shall be now merry. This Troilus full soon on knees him sette, full soberly, reeked be her bed as hede, and in his best wise his laddie greete. But Lord, so she wax suddenly she read, nay, though men shoulden smeten of her heed, she coulda not a word a reeked out bringe, so suddenly, for his sudden coming. But Pandarus, that so well coulda fail in everything, to play anon began, and saide, Nesa, see how this Lord can knaile. Now, for your troth, seeth this gentleman? And with that word he for a question ran, and saide, Knaileth now, will that your laste, their God your heart is bringe soon at rest. Can he not sayn, for she bade him not rease, if sorrow it putte out of her remembrance, or else that she took it in the wise of duety, as for his observance. But well fiende she did him this pleasance, that she him kissed, although she seeked sore, and bade him sit down withouten more. Quod Pandarus, now will ye well begin, now doth him sitte, good Nesidera, upon your beddes side all there within, that each of you the bet may other hear. And with that word he drew him to the fair, and took a leeked, and found his countenance, as for to look upon an old romance. Criseyde, that was Troilus laddie reeked, and Clare stood on the ground of Sikernessa, all thochte she, her servant and her knecht, ne should have reeked non untrouth in her gaze, yet natheless considered his distress, and that love is in cause of switch folly, thus to him spake she of his jealousy. Lo, Hartemine, as wold the excellence of love against the which that no man may, ne octe eke goodly mak in resistance, and eke because he felt well and say your great troth, and service every day, and that your heart all mean was, sooth the same, this truth me for to rue upon your pain. And your goodness have ye found all we yet, of which my dear heart and all me knecht, ye thonke it yow, as fair as ye have wit, all can ye nocht as much as it were reeked, and ye, and forth my coning and me meeked, have and shall, how sore that me smarte, been to yow true and whole, with a mean hearte, and readilies that shall be found at preva. But, Hartemine, what all this is to sayn, shall well be told, so that ye nocht yow grave, thou I to yow read on yourself complaine, for therewith may ne finally the pain, that halt your heart and mean in heaviness, fully to sleen, and every wrong redress. My good mean, not e for we, ne how, that yellow see, alas, that wicked wivery, thus causalis is cropen into yow, the harm of which ye wold fain deliver, alas, that he all whole, or of him sliver, should have his refute in so digna a place, there love him soon out of your heart arise. But O, thou love, O auctor of nature, Is this an honour to the deity, that folk unguiltive suffren here injury? And who that guiltive is, all queet goth he, or wherein it lawful for to plain on thee, that undeserved sufferest jealousy, of that he would upon thee plain and cry. Eke, all me woe is this, that folk now usen to saying rictus, yea, jealousy is love, and would a bushel venom all excusen, for that a grain of love is on it shova. But that what hath God that sit above, if it be leek or love, or hata, or grama, and after that it ought to bear his nama. But certain is, some manner jealousy is excusable more than some you wis, as one cause is, and some switch fantasy, with piety so well repressed is, that it on neither doeth or saith amiss, but goodly drinketh up all his distressa, and that excuse he for the gentilessa. And some so full of fury is and despite, that it surmounteth his repression. But heart I mean, ye be not in that plit, that thanketh ye God, for which your passion ye will not call it but illusion, of abundance of love and busy cure, that doth your heart this disease endure. Of which ye am rick sorry but not ruth, but for may devour, and your heart is rest, or so yow least by ordal or by ooth, by sort or in what wise so yow laced, for love of God, that prave it for the best. And if that ye be guiltive, do me day, alas, what meek ye more doen or say? With that a few break terrors knew out of her ain fila, and thus she said, Now God, thou wost, in thought ne data and true, to Troilus was never yet Criseyde. With that her head down in the bad she laid, and with the shated rake, and seeked sora, and held her peace, not a word spake she more. But now help God to quenchen all this sorrow, so hope ye that he shall, for he best may. For ye have seen, over full misty morwa, fallen full oft a merry summer's day, and after winter followeth grain o' May. Men seen all day, and raden eke in stories, that after sharpe showers been victories. This Troilus, when he here word is heard, have ye no cara him list not to sleep, for it took to him no strokes of a yard, to hear or seen Criseyde his laddie weep, but well he felt about his heart a creep, for every tear which that Criseyde esterte, a cramp of death to strain him by the heart. And in his mind he gan the team a curse, that he come there, and that he was born, for now is wiki eterna into versa, and all that labour he hath done beforn, he wend it lost, he thought he nos but lorn. O Pandarus, thought he, alas, the wheela serveth of naught, so wail away the wheela. And therewith all he hung adown the heed, and fell on knees, and sorrowfully he seeked. What meeked he saying? He felt he nos but deed, for Ruth was she that showed his sorrow was leaked. But natheless, when that he spake and meeked, then said he thus, God woot that of this gamma, when all is wist, then am he not to blama. Therewith the sorrow so his heart shetta, that from his eyen fell there not a terror, and every spirit his vigour inknetta. So they astoned or oppressed were, the failing of his sorrow, or of his fera, or of aught else fled was out of town, and down he fell all suddenly a swoon. This was no little sorrow for to say, but all was hushed, and Pandare up was fast. Onesa, peace, or we be lost, quod he. Beth not aghast, but certain at the last, for this or that, he into bad him casta, and saida, O thief, is this a man's hearta? And of he rent all to his bara sharta. And saida, Nace, but ye help us now. Alas, your own Troilus is born. Ye wis, so will ye, and ye wist how, full fain, quod she. Alas, that he was born. Yea, niece, will ye pullen out the thorn that sticketh in his heart, quod Pandare? Say, all for Yeva, and stint is all this fara. Yea, that to me, quod she, for lever were than all the good the sun about a gooth, and therewith all she swore him in his era. Ye wis me dere heart, ye am not Ruth, have hear me trouth, and many another ooth. Now spake to me, for item Criseyde, but all for naught, yet meeked he not a brede. Therewith his pows and palmes of his handes they gone to frote, and wet his temples twain, and to deliveren him for bittere bondes she oft him kissed, and shortly for to sain him to revoken she did all her pain, and at the last he gan his breath to draw, and of his swalg soon after that a daw, and gan bet minde and raised to him taka, but wonder sore he was a beast he wis, and with a seek when he gan bet a waka, he saide, O mercy God, what thing is this? Why do ye with yourselven thus amiss? Quoth Criseyde, is this a manus gama? What, Troilus? Will ye do thus for shama? And therewith all her armour over him she laide, and all forgave, and oft to team him cased. He thanked her, and to her spak and saide, as filled to purpose for his heart to rest. And she to that answered him as her laste, and with her goodly words him disporte, she gan, and oft his sorrows to comforte. Quod Pandarus, for aught he can spien, this licht, nor ine serven hair of naught. Licht is not good for seeker folkens yen, but for the love of God, sin ye be brought in this good pleat, let now non heavy thought been hanging in the heartes of your tway, and bar the candle to the chimney. Soon after this, log it no nede were, when she switch others as her least devise, had of him taka, her thought though no fairer, ne cause eke known, to bidde him than as rees, yet least a thing than others may suffice in many a case, for every week he guesse that loveth well, meaneth but gentilesse. But in effect she wolde wete known, of what man and eke were, and also we, he jealous was, sin there was cause none, and eke the signe that he took it be, she bade him that to tell her busily, or else certain she bar him on honda, that this was doon of malice her to fonda. Without an more, shortly for to sayn, he most obey unto his laddie heste, and for the lasse harme he most fain, he said to her, when she was at switche feste, she mikt on him and looked at the laste, not ye not what, all dare ye nocta risha, as he that needeth most a cause of fishe. And she answered, Sweete, all were it so. What harm was that, sin ye non ye volmena? For, by that God that balked us both two, in alle things mean tanta clean, switch arguments ne been not worth a bena, while ye that shield is jealous, counterfeite, now were it worthy that ye were bette. Though Troilus gan sorrowfully to seeke, that she be ruth, him thought his heart to dade, and saide, Alas, upon my sorrow seeke, have mercy, sweete heart mean Criseyde, and if that, in the words that he saide, be any wrong, ye will no more trespasse, do what thou list, ye am all in your grace. And she answered, of guilt misericorde, that is to say, that he forgave all this, and evermore on this nicht thou recorde, and beth well where ye do no more amiss. Nay, der heart mean quod he, ye wis, and now quod she, that ye have down your smarte, forgive it me, min own sweete harte. This Troilus, with lease of that surprised, put all in God's hand, as he that meant no thing but well, and, suddenly avised, he her in armes fast to him hente, and Pandarus, with a full good intente, laid him to sleep, and said, If ye been wise, snoweth not now, lest more folk arise. What meekter may the silly larke say, when that the sparhawk hath it in his foot, ye can no more, but of this ilke tway, to whom this tale sucre be or suit, though that a tarry a year some team ye mote, after me noctur tellen her gladnesse, as well as ye have told her heavinesse. Criseyde, which that felt her thus ye taka, as written clerkes in her book is olde, richt as an aspis leaf she gan to quacke, when she him felte her in his armes folde. But Troilus, all hool of carres cold, gan thanken though the blissful goddess seven, thus sundry pains bringen folk in heaven. This Troilus and Aramis gan her straine, and saide, O sweet, as ever mote ye gone, now be ye cocht, now is there but we twain, now yieldeth yow, for other boat is known. To that Criseyde answered thus anon, Nay, hadde ye ere now, me sweete harte dere, been yolde, ye wise, ye were now not here. O, sooth is said, that hailed for to be, as of a favour or other great sicknesse, men most to drinke, as men may often say, for bittere drink, and for to han gladnesse, men drinken oft to pain and great distresse. He main it here, as for this aventure, that thou'rk a pain hath found in all his cure. And now sweetnesse seemeth more sweete, that bitternesse sayed was beforn, for out of woe and bliss now they flete, now which they felten, sith they were born. Now is this bait, then both at woe be lorn. For love of God, take every woman hate, to worken thus, if it cometh to the need. Criseyde, all quit from every dread and tain, the she that used to cause had him to traste, made him switch faced, that joy was to sain, when she his troth and clain and taunt wiste, and as about a tray, with many a twiste, betrent and reeth the sote wode binde, gan each of him in armes other winde. And as the new abashed nightingale, that stinteth first, when she beginneth to singe, when that she heareth any herde tale, or in the hedges any weak stirring, and after seeker doth her voice outringe, reeked so Criseyde, when her dreade stente, opened her harte and told him her intente. And reeked as he that seeth his deithy shapen, and day a mote, in aught that he may gaze, and suddenly rescous doth him escapen, and from his death is brought in seekernesse. For all this world in switch present gladnesse was Troilus, and hath his lady sweete, with worse a hap God let us never mete. Her arm is small, her strength the back and soft, her seed is longe, fleshly, smooth and wheat, he gan to stroke, and good thrift bad full oft her snowish throat, her breast is round and leete, thus in this heaven he gan him to delete, and therewithal 1,000 team her kiste, that what to doen for joy unnethe he wiste. Then said he thus, O love, O charity, thy mother eke, Cytherea they sweet, after thyself next Heriot be she, Venus main e, they well willy planete, and next that Hymeneus e the great, for never man was to yow goddess hold as he, which ye ham brought fro Kerry's cold. Benigne love, thou holy bond of things, whoso will grass, and list thee not honoren, lo, his desire will flee withouten winges, for noldest thou of bounty him succoren, that serven best and most alway they boren, yet were all lost, that dowry will sain so 'tis, but if thy grass pass it all desertes. And for thou may, that could least deserve of him that numbered been unto thy grace, hast holpen, very likely was to starve, and me bestowed in so haich a place, that thilke bound as may no blisse passe, ye can no more, but loud and reverence, be to thy bounty and thine excellence. And therewithal Criseyde anon he kissed, of which certain she felt no disease, and thus saide he, Now wolde God he weest mine harte sweet, how he yow meek to please, what man, quod he, was ever thus at ease as he, on which the fairest and the best that ever he say, deigneth her harte rest. Here may men seen that mercy passeth reeked. The experience of that is felt in me, that am unworthy to so sweet a weeked, but heart mean of your benignity, so thinketh, though that ye unworthy be, yet mote need amenden in some wise, reeked thorough the virtue of your haich service. And for the love of God, me lady dere, sin God hath wrought me for he shall yow serve, as thus he maine, that ye will be me stare, to do me leave, if that yow least, or starve, so teacheth me how that he may deserve your thank, so that ye, through mine ignorance, ne do no thing that yow be displaisance. For certes, freshe woman leech weave, the study say, that troth and diligence, that shall ye finden in me all me lief. Ne will not certain break in your defence, and if ye do, present or in absence, for love of God, let slay me with thy deede, if that it leake unto your woman heede. Ye wis, quod she, min own heart's list, me ground of ease and all min hearte dere, grant mercy, for on that is all me trist. But let us fall away from this matter, for it sufficeth this that said is here, and at a word withouten repentance, welcome, me knicht, my peace, my suffisance. Of her delete, or joys un the leiste, were impossibly to me wit to say, but judgeth ye that han been at the feaste of switch gladnesse, if that him least a play, he can no more, but that these ilke twae that knicht, betwixt dread and seekernesse, felten in love the great worthinesse. O blissful knicht, of him so long ye sought, how blithe unto him both twa thou were. We ne hadde ye switch on with me sorely brought, yea, or the least joy that was there, away, thou foul danger and thou faire, and let him in this heaven blisse dwell, that is so haich, that all ne can ye tell. But sooth is, though ye cannot tell in all, as can min auctor of his excellence, yet have ye said, and God to forn, ye shall in everything all holy his sentence. And if that ye, at love's reverence, have any word in eached for the best, doth therewith all read as yourself enlaced. For min wordes, here and every part, he spake him all under correction of yow, that failing han in love's art, and put it all in your discretion, to increase or make a diminution of my language, and that it yow be sache, but now to purpose of me rather speche. This ilke twa that been in armes loft, so luth to him asunder goen it were, that each from other wind been beraft, or elles lo, this was her most affaire, that all this thing but nice dreames were, for which full oft each of 'em saide, O sweete, clepe each yow thus, or elles it mate. And Lord, so he gan goodly on her see, that never his look ne blainty from her face, and saide, O dear heart, may it be that it be sooth, that ye been in this place? Yea, hearte mine, God thank ye of his grace, quod do Criseyde, and therewith all him kieste, that where his spirit was, for joy he miste. These Troilus full oft her e'en twa gan for to kiesse, and saide, O e'en Clare, it were ye that rocked me switch woe, ye humble nettes of my lady dere, though there be mercy written in your chere, God wot, the text full hard is, sooth to finde, how could ye withouten bond me binde? Therewith he gan her faste in armes take, and well in 100 teames gan he seeke, not sweet sorrowful seekes as men make for woe, or elles one that folks been seeke, but easy seekes, switches been to leeke, that showed his affection within, of sweetche seekes could he not begin. Soon after this they spake of sundry thinges, as fill to purpose of this aventure, and playing entrechangeden her ringes, of which he can not tell in no scripture, but well he woot, a brooch, gold and assure, in which a ruby set was leaken harte, Criseyde him yaf, and stak it on his shirt. Lord, trow ye a covetous a wretche bay, that blameth love and holt of it despite, that of the pains that he can mocre and cache, was ever yet ye gave him switch delete, as is in love, in oo point, in some pleat, nay, doubt Elise, for also God me save, so perfect joy may no niggard have. They will say, yes, but Lord, so that they lie, though busy wretches, full of woe and dread, they call in love a woodnesse or folly, but it shall follow him as he shall yow reade. They shall forego the wete and eke the reade, and leave in woe their God gave him mischance, and every lover in his troth avance. As wold a God, though wretches that despise a service of love, had Eris all so long as Haramida, full of covetise, and thereto drunken hard as hoot and stronger as crasse steed for his affectus wronga, to teachen him that they been in the visa, and lover is knocked, although they holde him nisa. This ilke twa, of whom that I jou say, when that her heart is well assured were, though gone they to spaken and to play, and eke rehearsen how, and wanna and were, they knew him first, and every woe and fairer that passed was, but all such heaviness, ye thanke it God, was turned to gladness. And evermo, when that him fell to spake of anything of switch a team agone, with kissing all that tala shoulder breaka, and fallen in a newe joy anon, and diden all her meeked, sin they were own, for to recover in bliss and being at ease, and passed woe with joy contrapays. Reason will not that he spake of sleep, for it accordeth not to my matter. God woot, they talk of that for little cape, but less this neeked, that was to him so dere, ne should in vain escape in no manera, it was beset in joy and busyness, of all that soundeth into gentilesse. But when the cock, commune astrologer, gan on his breast to beta, and after crow, and Lucifer, the day's messenger, gan for Teresa, and out her bemis throw, and esward rose, to him that could it know, Fortuna major, that anon Criseyde with hearte sore, to Troilus and Criseyde. Mijn heart is lief, me triste and my plaisance, that he was born, alas, what me is woe, that die vas mut mark deseverance. For team it is to Risa, and hennes go, where Ella's I am lost for evermore. O neeked, alas, why nilt thou over us hova, as long as wana almena lay by lova? O blaka neeked, as folk in boekes rede, that shapen art by God this world to heede, as certain teames with the darke wede, that under that man meeked and rest abide, while ook the best is plain, and folk thee cheede, that thereas they with labor world us presta, that thou thus fleest, and deignest us not resta. Thou dost, alas, to shortly thine office, thou rock neeked, their God, maker of kinde, thee, for thine hast and thine unkinde visa, so fast I to our hemisphere binde, that never more under the ground thou winde, for now, for thou so hiest out of Troy, have ye forgone thus hastily me joy. This Troilus, that with the word is felte, as though to him though, for pietaus distressa, they bloody terrors from his heart melte, as he that never yet such heaviness assayed hadde, or of so great gladness, gan therewithal Criseyde his laddie dere, in armes strain, and saide in this manere. O cruel day, accuser of the joy, that neeked in love hence stole, and fast ye Ryan, accursed be the coming into Troy, for every boar hath one of thee Brictian. Envious day, what list thee so to span? What hast thou lost? Why seekest thou this place? Their God thy leet so quench for his grace. Alas, when han this lovers thee a guilt, dispitous day, thine bay the peen of hell, for many a lover hast thou shent and wilt, by pouring in warm aware let him dwell. But profferest thou thy leeked here for to sell, go sell at him that smalle sell is graven, we will thee knocked, us needeth no day haven. And eke the sonne, Titan gan he cheede, and saide, O fool, well may men thee despise, that hast they dawing all neeked by thee seede, and sufferest here so soon up fro thee rise, for to diseasen lovers in this wise. What? Holde your bed there, thou, and eke thee ye biddy God, so yive ja both the sorrow. Therewith full sore he seekte, and thus he said, Me lady reeked, and of me well or woe, the well and wrote, O goodly mean Criseyde, and shall ye rise, alas, and shall ye go? Now feel ye that mine heart moete twoe, for how shall ye me leave an houre save, sin that with jou is all they lief ye have? What shall ye doen, for certes, ye not how? Ne wana, alas, ye shall the teame see, that in this plit he may be eft with jou, and of me lief, God wot, how that shall be, sin that desire reek now so beateth me, that he am deed anon, but a return. How shall he longer, alas, for jou sojourn? But natheless, mijn own laddie breekt, yet were it so that he wist outerly, that ye, your humble servant and your knecht, were in your heart set so firmly, as ye and mine, the which thing truly, me lever were than these a world is twain, yet shall he bet enduring all me pain. To that Criseyde answered reek anon, and with a seek she said, O hearte deare, the gam I wis so fair forth now is gone, that first shall Phoebus fall fro his spere, and every egle being the dove is fairer, and every roche out of his place starte, Troilus out of Criseyde's harte. Yea, hey, so deep in with mine harte grave, that though he would turn out of my thoughte, as wisely var I God my soul save, to dien in the pain I could knocked, and for the love of God that us bath rocked, let in your brain none other fantasy so crepe, that it cause me to die. And that ye may wold han as fast in minde as ye have jou, that wold ye jou be seche, and, if ye wis soothly that to finde, God meekte not appoint my joys age, but harte mine without a more speche, beth to me trow, or else were it routh, for I am thine, be God and be my troth. Beth glad for thee, and leven secernesse, who saide I never ere this ne shall to mo, and if to jou it were a great gladnesse, to turn again, soon after that ye go, as fain would I as ye, it were so, as wisely God mine harte bringeth reste, and him in armes took, and ofte keste. Against his will, sin it mote nedes be, this Troilus uprose, and fast him clade, and in his armes took his laddie free, an 100 time, and on his way him spade, and with switch wordes as his harte blade, he saide, Farewell, me deare harte sweete, der goddess grante sonde, and soon to meete. To which no word for sorrow she answered, so sore gan his parting her distrain, and Troilus unto his palace fared, as woe begone as she was sooth the same, so hard him wrong of sharp desire the pain, for to being eft there he was in plaisance, that it may never out of his remembrance. Returned to his real palace, sone he soft into his bed gan for to slinke, to sleep along, as he was wont to done, but all for naught, he may well liege and winke, but sleep ne may there in his heart sinke, thinking how she, for whom desire him brende, 1,000-fold was worth more than he wende. And in his thought gan up and down to winde her wordes all, and every countenance, and firmly impressen in his minde, the least point that to him was plaisance, and very leech of thilke remembrance. Desire all knew him brende, and lust to brede gan more than erst, and yet took he none heede. Criseyde also reeked in the same wise, of Troilus gan in her harte shete his worthinesse, his lust, his dates wise, his gentilesse, and how she with him mate, thinking glove he so well her besette, desiring eft to have her harte dere in switch a plit, she durste mak him chere. Pandara, a morwa which that common was unto his niece, and gan her faire great, saide, all this nicht so reigned it, alas, that all me dreade is that ye, niece sweet, and little laser had to sleep and mate. All nicht, quod he, hath reigned so domi waka, that some of us, I trow, her had his aka. And there he come and said, How stont it now, this merry morwa niece, how can ye fare? Criseyde answered, Never the bet for jou, fox that ye bane, God gave your heart a care. God help me so, ye caused all this fare. Trow I, quod she, for all your word is weete. Oh, whoso seeth jou, knoweth jou for vita. With that she gan her face for to rie with the shete, and wax for sham all reade, and Pandarus gan under for to prie, and saide, Niece, if that he shall be deed, have here sweared, and smeeteth off mine heed, but that his arm all suddenly he threeste under her necke, and at the last her kiste. He passe all that which chargeth not to say, what? God forgave his deeth, and she also forgave, and with her uncle again to play, for other cause was there none than so. But of this thing reeked to the effect to go, when Tima was home till her house she wente, and Pandarus hath fully his entente. Now turn we again to Troilus, that restless for long abed lay, and privily sent after Pandarus, to him to come in all the haste he may. He come anon, not honest said he nay, and Troilus full soberly he grate, and down upon his bed seede him sette. This Troilus with all the affection of friend's love that hearte may devise, to Pandarus on knees fell adown, and ere that he wold of the place arise, he gan him thanken in his beste wise, and 100 seethe he gan the team blesse, that he was born, to bring him fro distresse. He saide, O friend of friendes, the allerbeste that ever was, the south for to telle, thou hast in heaven ye brought my soul at reste, fro flaggy town, the fairy flood of hell, that, though ye make the 1,000 teams sell upon a day, me lief in thy service, it make the nacht a mote in that suffice. The sonne, which that all the world may say, saw never yet my lief that dary lay, so inly fair and goodly as is she, whose I am all, and shall till that day, and that I thus am heres dare say, that thanked be the haik worthiness of love, and eke thee kinde busyness. Thus hast thou me no little thing ye gave, for which to thee obliged be for aye my lief, and we, for thurg thine help ye leave, for Alice indeed had a be many a day. And with that word down on his bed he lay, and Pandarus full soberly him heard, till all was said, and then he thus answered, Me deare friend, if ye have done for thee in any cause, God woot, it is my lief, and am as glad as man may of it be. God help me so, but talk now a grief that ye shall sayn, beware of this mischief, that, thereas thou now brought art into bliss, that thou thyself may cause it not to miss. For of fortune's sharpe adversity, the worste kind of infortune is this, a man to have been in prosperity, and it remembering when it passed is, thou art wise enough, for thy do not remiss. Be not too rackle, though thou sit a warme, for if thou be, certain it will be harme. Thou art at ease, and hold of the well therein, for also sure as reed is every fear, as great a craft is keep a well as win. Bridle all we well, thy speech and thy desire, for worldly joy halt not but by a weir, that braveth well, it breast all day so ofte, for thy need is to work with it softe. Quod Troilus, ye hope in God to forn, my deare friend, that he shall so me beare, that in me guilt there shall no thing be lorn, nay e'll not rackle, as for te graven here, it needeth not this matter ofte terre, for wistest thou mine hearte well, Pandora, God woot, of this thou woldest little care. Though gan he tell him of his glad neekte, and whereof first his hearte dreade, and how and saide, friend as he him through kneekte, and by that faith he shall to God enjow, he had it never half so hot as now, and aye the more that desire me beateth to love her best, the more it may deleteth. I knew myself not wisely what it is, but now I fell a new quality, yea, all another than I did ere this. Pandora answered and said thus, that he that ones may in heaven blisse be, he faileth other ways, dare lay, than thilke time he first heard of it say. This is a word for all, this Troilus was never full to spake of this matter, and for to present unto Pandarus the bounty of his reekte laddie dare, and Pandarus to thank and mark and cheere, this tale was span new to begin, till that the neekt departed him atwin. Soon after this, for that fortunate worlde, he comen was the blissful time sweete, that Troilus was warned that he shoulde, there he was erst, Criseyde his laddie mate, for which he felt his heart in joy flate, and faithfully gan all the godes herry, and let's see now if that he can be merry. And holden was the form and all the wheeze of her coming, and eke of his also, as it was erst, which needeth not devise, but plainly to the effect reeked for to go, in joy and surety Pandarus hem two a bed abrachte, when that hem both aleste, and thus they been in quiet and in reste. Noch needeth it ta jou, sin they been met, to ask at me if that they blithe were, for if it erst was well, thou was it bet 1,000-fold, this needeth not inquire. Agone was every sorrow and every ferra, and both ye wis they hadde, and so they wende, as much a joy as hearte may comprehende. This is no little thing, or for to say, this passeth every wit for to devise, for each of him gan others lost obey, felicite, which that these clerkes wheeze commenden so, they may not here suffice. This joy may not written been with ink, this passeth all that hearte may bethinke. But cruel day, so well away the stonde, gan forth approach, as they by sickness knew, for which him thought felon death is wonde, so woe was him that changed gone her hue, and they goonen to despise all new, calling it traitor, envious, and worse, and bitterly the days leaked they curse. Quod Troilus, alas, now emiwar that Pyrrhus, and thou swift statest three, which that drawen forth the sunne's char, and goon some by-path in despite of me, that maketh it so soon a day to be, and for the son him hasteth thus to reise, ne shall we never doen him sacrifice. But nedes day departe most him sona, and when her speech doen was and her chera, they twinne known as they were wont to doen, and set in team of meeting after fera, and many a neek they rocked in this manner, and thus fortune a team ladde in joy Criseyde, and eke this king's son of Troy. In suffisance, in blisse, and in sinking gas, this Troilus gan all his leave to lade, he spendeth, looseth, maketh festinings, he gaveth freely oft, and changeth wade, and held about him alway, out of dreade, a world of folk, as come him well of kinde, the freshest and the best he could finde. The switch of voice was of him and a staven, through out the world, of honour and largesse, did it uprung unto the gate of heaven, and, as in love he was in switch gladnesse, that in his heart he deemed, as he guesse, that there his lover in this world that aise, so well as he, and thus he gan love him please. The goodly head or beauty which that kinde, in any other lady had ye set, cannot the mountains of a knotten binde, about his hearte, of all Criseyde's net. He was so narrow y masked and y knet, that it undone on any manner seede, that nil not been, for aught that may be tide. And be the handful ofte he will talk of this Pandarus, and into garden lade, and switch a feaste and switch a process make him of Criseyde, and of her woman Hede, and of her beauty, that withouten dreade it was in heaven his wordes for to heare, and then he wolde sing in this manere. Love that of earth and sea hath governance, love that his hestes hath in heaven he, love that with an wholesome alliance hot peoples joined, as him list him gie, love that knetteth law of company, and couples doth in virtue for to dwelle, being this accord that ye have told in tale. That the world with faith, which that estable, diverseth so his standes concording, that elements that being so discordable, holden a bond perpetually during, that Phoebus mote his rosy day forth bring, and that the Mona hath lordship over the Nyctes, all this doth love, a Heriod be his Mictes. That the say, the grady is to flowen, constraineth to a certain end so his floods, that so fiercely they ne growen to drench in earth and all for evermore. And if that love aught late his bridal go, all that now loveth asunder shoulder labour, and lost were all that loveth halt now to hape. So will the God that auctor is of kinde, that with his bond love of his virtue liste to circling heart is all, and faste binde, that from his bond no weak the way outwiste, and heart is cold, him woldy that he twista, to make him love, and let him laist I rue on heart is sore, and keep him that been true. In all the natives for the town as wera, he was, and I the first in armes deeked, and certainly, but if that book is erra, save Ector, most he dread of any weeked, and this increase of hardiness and meeked calm him of love, his laddie's thank to winna, that altered his spirit so withinna. In team of throw, on hawking wold he reada, or Ellis hunting boar, bear or leon, the smaller bastes late he goen besieda, and one that he come reading into town, full oft his laddie from her window down, as fresh as falcon coming out of mew, for read he was, him goodly to salue. And most of love and virtue was his speecha, and in despite hadde all wretchednessa, and doubtiless no neither was him besecha to honour in him that hadde worthinessa, and easen him that weren in distressa, and glad was he if any weeked welferde, that lover was, when he it wist or hearde. Forsooth the same, he lost held every weeked, but if he were in love's haig service, he mena folk that oft it been of reeked, and over all this, so well could he devise of sentiment, and in so uncouth wise all his array, that every lover thoughtde that all was well, whatso he saide or rockde. And though that he become of blood royal, him least afraid at no wicked for to chasa, benigne he was to each in general, for which he got him thank in every place. Thus wold the love ye harried be his grasa, that pride, envy, ira, and avarice, he gan to flee, and every other visa. Thou lady breathed the doctor to Dion, they blind and winged son eke, Don Cupid, ye sustren nina eke, that by Elicon in Il Parnasso listen for to abide, that ye thus fair and deigned me to guide, ye can no more, but sin that ye will wende, ye harried been for aye, without an ende. Thourig yow have ye said fully in my song, the fecht and joy of Troilus service, albeit that there was some disease among, as to mean auctor listeth to devise. My thread book now end each in this wise, and Troilus in loosed and inquiet is with Criseyde his own heart sweet. Explicit Liber Turcius. End of Book 3.